Olympics because the Algerian boxer Iman Khalif has successfully gone through to the women's boxing final against China's Yang Liu as the boxer reaches for that gold medal.
Oh, yes. Well, the news comes after Khalif found themselves at the centre of a gender debate after they and fellow boxer Lin Yu-ting were banned from competing in last year's World Championships because they were, well, supposedly found to have XY chromosomes, which would have made them men, right? That's the thing.
Well, yeah, we're joined by the co-director for Women Scotland, Susan Smith. Susan, there has been a huge amount of confusion over this, how an athlete can be banned from a World Championships, but then go ahead to perform now in the women's final of the boxing at the Olympics. Why is there this difference of opinion when it comes to this particular athlete?
Well, the IOC have taken over the governance for this Olympics over boxing. It was previously governed by the International Boxing Authority, and so they had rules in place that said that to be eligible for the female category, you had to be biologically female, and they were screened apparently two of these boxers, and they have said they found they had male karyotype, which means that they would have had XY, i.e. male chromosomes, and that they were responsive to testosterone, so that they felt they had an advantage. But the IOC have different rules, and the IOC have actually for quite a long time had policies which are felt to be quite destructive of women's sports. It's the kind of policies that we saw a few years ago in the Tokyo Olympics allow someone like Laurel Hubbard, who was a very openly out transgender person, not even someone with a medical condition, being able to compete, many felt very unfairly, in women's weightlifting.
Yeah, can I just ask that? You mentioned Laurel Hubbard, who turned up, by the way, I think, like an absolute disgrace. I remember covering that. I don't think that they particularly tried. I wonder if there was some desire not to try, really, there, as in some way to try to prove that, oh, look, you know, men don't necessarily dominate women's sports, etc. I literally remember covering that at the time. Do you think that what we are witnessing here is a man punching women in the face for sport and going to win a gold medal for it?
I think it's possibly slightly more complex because we are probably, in all likelihood, looking at a case where this boxer has this medical condition. And it means that when these children are born, people think they are female because they have ambiguous genitalia. If Khalif has a condition like castesemania, which of course caused a lot of controversy in the 2016 Rio Olympics. This condition means that these individuals are receptive to testosterone at puberty, and they will go through a form of male puberty. And so the question then is, do these people have a greater advantage than women? And I think that's probably undeniable. It seems terribly unfair on individuals, and it can be very obviously hugely distressing for people when they're going through this. But it's also unfortunately ripe for exploitation by anybody who's unscrupulously hoping to put their country in gold medal position, or scouts who are looking for athletes who might be able to exploit this. So there's a concern as well that you could see some people with medical conditions being exploited. And if this is a case of 5ARD, as castesemania was, what we do know from studies in places where these conditions are prolific is these children tend to then start to identify as boys when they go through this puberty and when they realise that their biological sex is actually male. In a very similar way to there was an Austrian skier back in the 1960s who'd been mistakenly assigned female at birth. I will use that because it's the one time it's right, and was found by the Olympics who did then do sex testing, to be male. And he went on to have corrective surgery and to live a very happy, successful life, getting married and having a daughter.
I mean, Susan, just very quickly, because we're running out of time, but what confuses me, we spoke to a guest a little bit earlier who seemed to suggest that no one's really seen the detail of this test that was done in the run-up to the World Championships. It doesn't appear to be that the sharing of information here, everything doesn't seem to be as transparent as it should be. If we're talking about fairness at the height of sport, which is the Olympics, surely that should be out in the open, Susan.
Yes, it should. The problem is that tests the IBA did cannot be made public without the consent of the individuals, because there are obviously rules about medical confidentiality for very good reason. So the people who have the power to deal with this and make it open and transparent are the IOC. And they should have been doing this by bringing in cheek swabs, because that's all that's needed, and testing for sex. And it would have nipped it all in the bud, because especially in contact sports where you do need to ensure that you've got safety as well as fairness.
Thank you very much. Sorry to cut that short. Well, Susan Smith there. When we